What up?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second issue of Why Am I Nerd presents Yo, What Up Comics, where each and every week we get together to talk all things comics. From old to new, fan theories to what ifs, we got you covered. My name's Cameron James, and joining me, as always, the golden voice of podcast, Mr. Matt Ferreira.
Thanks for having me, as always.
Always a good pleasure to have you here. I think we got a really good show today.
Yeah, we got a pretty topical comic book to review here. Thanks in part to one of the comments we received on YouTube, which, as always, we appreciate. This one came out from Kevin Hudson, asking us who we thought would be good to cast as the Blue Marvel, which inspired us to reread the book. And then now we're going back and get ready to discuss it, as well as our casting predictions here. So
yeah, I mean, we might spend the whole time on this because I think with everything going on right now, this was like the perfect opportunity to read this. And I never read the book. But before we get into it, just real fast, you can follow us on Instagram.com/whyamiNerdOfficial, Facebook.com/whyamiNerd, or you could search us on YouTube. When we get 100 subscribers, we can actually have a YouTube link. So right now it's just youtube.com.
Please follow us, comment, like everything. Please, guys. We would love the views, and then we can, send you out even more content.
And we'll continue to do what we're doing now. But let's just dive right into Blue Marvel. So Blue Marvel first appeared in Adam Legend of the Blue Marvel, released in November of 2008 by, I'm going to butcher this, Kevin Graveau?
I think that's right. I actually think you got that.
Did I? He was actually an actor. I didn't know this, and I looked at his acting career. It seemed pretty good. He did like Batman Forever. He was in Steel, what we were talking about last week.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what he had on it, but he was in it. So I just want to give a brief history. Again, there will be spoilers in this, like we did last week. We'll have a little spoiler alert and whatnot. But
in fairness, you've also had about 12 years to read this, so I'd recommend if you haven't, go to your local comic book store once they're open again, or try and download the book on Barnes & Noble if you can.
And we should say we did get called out last week that our math was wrong with whatever we were talking about. Maximum Carnage, we said 15 years. It was like 29 years later. I was like, all right, we were way off. Yeah. But just pretty much a brief summary about this book is pretty much it's done. Adam Brasher is the Blue Marvel. And he was in the Marine Corps during the Korean War. He later became the project leader in a scientific attempt to harness antimatter through the creation of Negative Reactor, which created a bridge between the negative zone and the positive matter universe.
Which, off the bat, like, what? Like the fact that this guy, and he was the star running back for the team, super athletically talented, super academically gifted. Played for Cornell, I believe. At one point, they I think is it JFK who references that he beats him in Harvard or something like that.
And JFK also gives him the medal, which we'll talk about, which is kind of like the huge plot. I would say is like the big. When that happened, again, we'll get to that in a second. Back to what the premise, so you all know what's going on. The reactor uses a source of ultimate energy, cleaning, allowing the device to tap into stable events between the horizon balance between the two universes.
So this is basically when they tapped into this antimatter universe. Adam and his friend at the time just became doused in this energy and were just like ridiculously next level powerful.
Connor is his friend.
Connor, thank you. And it's actually really cool because when the book opens, it's against some of the most powerful Avengers just getting their asses beat. Like you've got Iron Man, who's one of the more classic Avengers. You've got Ares, the God of War. You have Miss Marvel.
That was kind of strange for me. I didn't really.
Well, that's something that happened in the books, but then he gets owned later. But that's another storyline.
Right.
You've got Miss Marvel, who's one of my favorite characters, just absurdly powerful in her own right with her energy absorption. And then you've got the Sentry, who has described as the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns, which by any definition, any book you look at is overkill. 1,000,000 exploding suns. You know what one exploding sun would do when he's got the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns and he gets his ass beat? Like, says at one point, I think that this is the most powerful villain he's ever faced when he's facing off against, Blue Marvel's nemesis here.
Oh, Anti-Man?
Like, Anti-Man, thank you, Anti-Man. Which is a very lackluster name.
Time out. Before we get into lackluster names, one of my things I had to say was, can Marvel come up with a different name besides Marvel and a color? or Marvel and something.
And something in front of it. Yeah,
Miss Marvel, Blue Marvel,
well, yeah, Captain Marvel. Like, there's always,
The name is cheesy. I'm sorry.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. It's just, not everything can be so marvelous all the time.
That was a terrible pun. That was awful.
I'm the king of bad puns. Come on now.
We established that.
They call me the marvelous bad pun.
So anyway, pretty much what happens is summon it all up. A reactor blows up, and Blue Marvel becomes Blue Marvel, and his friend becomes Anti-Man. And parts of this takes place in modern day, and the other part of it takes place in 1962, which I read, which is kind of where I would say the majority of what makes this book so perfect to read in this time. Again, with everything going on right now with the riots and protests and whatnot, like this book tackles the situation at hand currently and racism right off the bat.
Right. And to go into, for anyone who hasn't read the book that doesn't understand it, so the book opens with Anti-Man going up against probably the toughest, most powerful incarnation of the Avengers team we've ever seen. And he's handling them like he really is, until he essentially gets Thanos at the end of the book. He just kind of fades off into nothingness and disappears. And the Avengers are like, what the actual hell just happened? And then it kind of flashes back to the past, and you see Anti-Man going on a rampage in the 60s, and Blue Marvel's there to stop him. People are cheering him on. They're like, oh, Blue Marvel, he's our hero. And they had this huge epic blowout battle, and Blue Marvel has this whole head-to-toe outfit. You can't really see much of his skin or his body. And throughout this battle, his costume gets destroyed. And people realize, it's like, holy shit, this is a black guy, under this armor and, fantastic costume the whole time with all these amazing powers. And they're terrified just because of the state of the way things are at the time. The white people at the time are terrified of a black man with that level of power, which, like you said, is so topical and so relevant right now with what we're seeing just with the state of the world.
Yeah, and it was written this in the utmost respect, the best way possible. It was written beautifully. It was beautifully written. The artwork was
the artwork's amazing,
fucking awesome.
It really is very, very well done.
And the thing too, which kind of I would say is a big part of this too, is like I said before when we talked about JFK, is he pretty much gives Blue Marvel the Medal of Freedom and says, go hide.
Yeah,
here's the Medal of Freedom.
He's like, we appreciate everything you did. And he says it at one point. He's like, I pray to God that we never need his help again, because, like, how can we ask him to come back if something happens? And I think it's, I forget if it's issue like 2 or 3 where something does happen. He's on the moon collecting his thoughts. Pretty sure he's talking to the Watcher. And then there's that Armada kind of comes in. Am I getting too far ahead of myself there?
No, isn't that... So
it might be later. I might have the wrong issue.
That happens after we find out that his wife...
Yes, that's correct. So it's way later on. Yeah, his wife was sent to basically spy on him, but ended up falling... Yeah, but ended up falling in love with him anyway, which is the whole thing. Like, you're... At that point in the book, you're kind of like, how much does this guy have to go through? Like, he really hasn't done anything wrong, and it's almost like their cards are stacked against him. He's got all this awesome power, and he's doing the right things with it. And he just kind of can't get ahead of, just the basic bias that I think, human beings are sometimes known to have.
Well, what was interesting, too, with when they did that, when they pretty much shoot him away and said, go hide, don't do it, hopefully never need you, they set him up with, his wife was a white woman.
Right.
Which was kind of like, what? Like, I was really thrown off by why they would do that, because they didn't really ever explain.
And how did they know that was going to work? You know what I mean? Like, he could have very easily been like, pardon me. He could have very easily been like, no, I mean, if he had been any kind of level of petty at all, that could have completely backfired on the U.S. government. It was a bold choice to send a white woman to essentially spy on him. But at the same time, who else could they get? They kind of had to roll the dice on it. But it's just so that's got to hurt on a deep level. Imagine that. Like, you're like, okay, I'm the most powerful human being on the face of the planet. Save the Earth a dozen times over. At one point, they mention that he literally stops a meteor that's the size of Arkansas from hitting the Earth with his bare hands. Like, he's going to fly into space and stop it. And then the country tells you, well, now that we know you're black, you've got to stop being a superhero. And then you've got your wife, who, you think you're in love with, turns out was a spy off the bat. Like, that's hit after hit. That's got to take a mental toll.
Yeah, well, they even said, too, at one point, he he was saving kids and was still getting booed, and then they were saying how like he saved like a bullet, like someone was shooting at something. He saved
and the bullet ricocheted and
hit like an older gentleman or a woman, and then they were like, "Oh, it's your fault." It's like, dude, like
you're like you shot at him, like he didn't throw that bullet.
It was really interesting because he doesn't really ever show up again. Like I kind of felt like it was really only again, I didn't really ever hear of who he was before until it was brought to our attention. And again, I'm very happy I read it, and I binged this in like an hour and a half. Yeah. I found it.
It is a very solid read. Yeah.
But like he doesn't, ever really show up. It seems like again, and
he's in. I think he's in one of the Avengers. Yeah, he's in one of the more recent incarnations of the Avengers. Like they're, God, I can't remember what the title name is, but I do remember he was in Deep Space with actually Miss Marvel at one point. He's got like an alternate costume now that actually reveals his face and stuff. But he's one of those top level like super strong characters that almost has to be in space because like there's no reason for him to be on Earth. Like he's almost too strong to be handling with terrestrial level threats.
He doesn't wear the mask at the end when Correct. He's fighting Anti-Man again.
Yeah.
That was kind of weird too for me, like how that whole thing played out. Like he was like, that was only, I think if there was a loophole in this book was when they were like, okay, we need your help, and he's like, yeah, no, it's gonna be my way or the highway, and then like kind of like screw you, and he like goes off and does it himself, and then the Avengers pretty much beat him up and shun him again, and then like he just shows back up, and he's like, okay, we're gonna do this my way or the highway, and they're kind of like, all right, I guess so. Yeah. And then he just like goes on like a tangent. And I don't remember how, but again, you start to feel for his wife a little bit because she's apologizing. She's like, I'm so sorry, like I love you.
She's like, I saw how good of a man you were, and
And then she disintegrates.
That. Yeah. She just gets snapped.
Yeah, she literally is like she's running where they're all fighting. I don't remember where exactly they're fighting. I know they're by the Avenger Tower, Stark Tower, I think. So they don't really ever explain why. And I believe it's this book that he ends up like getting an argument with Mr. Fantastic. Isn't Mr. Fantastic in this one?
I'm pretty sure he's in there because Adam Brasher is considered one of the more premier scientists, I think, of the time.
And they don't agree.
Yeah.
Like, Mr. Fantastic is like, oh, you can't do this. Like, pretty much like,
and he's like, you gotta do this. Yeah, it's like one of those like,
you
go up against Mr. Fantastic. It's like going against Mr. Fantastic for intelligence is like measuring your strength against the Hulk. You know what I mean? Like you go against the best to really prove your worth, kind of in the Marvel universe with some of that level, caliber intelligence.
Yeah, and it was interesting too how they kind of brought that all together because I don't even think he was in it that much. Maybe at the end was Mr. Fantastic, but again, I mean. And that was the other thing too, like so after they fight Anti-Man and his wife gets disintegrated, dies in his arms, and she turns into like not even mush. She just like gets burnt.
So she doesn't feel so good.
No, not at all. They pretty much say like he pretty much just like goes off. It's like he's back home and I think he's doing something. I forget maybe with his kids and they just like, all right, I'm out. See you later. Back to square one. And
I think they initially intended for this book to kind of be like a one-off thing, just a story of a guy who existed then goes away, and then they just kind of brought him back. They're like, there's actually some value and depth to this character, so they kind of not necessarily retconned it, but just brought him back into the main focus.
What was interesting too is that they referenced in the book was they kept thinking he was a mutant. I remember.
I'm sorry, I know exactly where you're going with this. I'll let you proceed, and then I'll share my thoughts.
No, you can go. I was going to say, like, I know they think he's a mutant, and in America at the time, like, they don't like mutants because they're different.
Yeah.
And they're not, like, they're born with the mutation. They're not giving it, like, Iron Man is just like...
Yeah, it's just like, yo, I'm in a suit. Yeah.
Yeah, but then it's like, I get that, but, okay, you're born with a mutation, right? But then you have...
Like Captain America
who's injected with it. Then you have Hulk, who's, I guess he's
wishing you're a bomb. Like, right. It's just like weird stuff happens, and I never fully understood that because the concept of the X-Men as a whole makes perfect sense. Like, if they're in a vacuum where they're the only people with unique abilities, like they are in their own films, it makes sense why people would be scared or afraid of them. But then when you put that in the phrase of the lens of like, okay, Captain America's around, Spider-Man's around, Thor's around, and maybe not Spider-Man as much, but the rest are beloved in the greater frame of the Marvel universe. And they're like, oh, but the X-Men, they're gross because they were born with their powers. I'm scared of them. It almost doesn't fit in quite as well because it doesn't make sense. Why would you celebrate one and hate the other? And I was personally, even when I watched the X-Men cartoon as a kid, like, why the hell would you start a fight with a mutant openly? Like, that's a guy who can shoot lasers out of his eyes. That's my best friend. Like, I'm hanging out with like, yo, man, you want ice cream? It's on me. Like, let's go hang out later. Like, I want to be best friends with that guy. The last thing I want to do is antagonize someone who can blow up my car with a thought.
Right, and that was kind of like the thing was that why? Like, what is the difference?
Yeah,
like,
and I think when Stan Lee first created everything, made perfect sense. It was that time, it was around the time of the civil rights movement. Everything then kind of made sense, but it's just in the greater lens of the Marvel universe, which I think is something they're going to struggle with come, integrating them into the MCU. I don't quite see how that's going to work unless they literally say, oh, some people just start to have powers and then everyone's distrustful of superhuman beings. I'm not quite sure how they're going to work that in without it being awkward or weird.
Yeah, I mean, because if you think about it, even like you said, going back to the cartoons, like they've kind of always brought that into the X-Men.
Yeah,
the X-Men have always kind of been like shunned.
Yeah, they're protecting a world that hates and fears them. It's always there a whole little diatribe that they've lived and died by.
And they never really get into why.
Yeah, people just do. And in a vacuum, that would make sense. If it's just the X-Men, totally get why people would be afraid of them. But when you look at all the other superheroes that exist and all the other random people, it's not like everyone's disclosing their backstory. Like Spider-Man's never been on TV like, oh, I was bitten by a radioactive spider. Yeah. Aside from that one time in Civil War. But for the most part, when he revealed his identity, we might have
I thought you were talking about getting bit, like getting spider powers another way. I was like, he always just gets
bit. No, yeah. No,
I was like, what are you talking about? You had me for a loop there.
My bad. No, but no, it's just one of those things that I don't understand why within the confines of the Marvel universe, people are always so fearful of mutants and so super trusting of anyone else. Like, what's to say Captain America wasn't a mutant who just happened to be the symbol of America? There's nothing to really prove otherwise, and people just kind of go off it. So that's one of the little weird parts of the Marvel universe I think could have been improved on.
Yeah, and I mean, even too with this book, like even the time it was written, in 2007, I think
2008, I think it was.
I don't think everything that's going on now in the world was really as what's the word? Like as
prevalent.
Is that the right word?
I think it definitely hit more of a fever pitch now. I think a lot of the reason that we're seeing so many issues come to light, when it comes to race and, when it comes to things like that is because of, honestly, the internet. Like, people have so much quicker access to, like, if they see something to share it, and then millions of other people can see it, that, it kind of sheds a light on things that would have otherwise been unseen. It's kind of the same with what happened with the civil rights movement initially, where, people in the North didn't quite know what was going on in the South, and they see people peacefully protesting, getting attacked with dogs, getting hit with hoses, because it was on TV, and they're like, this is kind of fucked up. Like, we should do something about it. And I think we're kind of seeing the same thing now. So it's a positive change, definitely a rough time for the country. But I hope in the long run, this ends up being, a positive thing that, we see some kind of change, that people grow and evolve from this, that hopefully our kids won't have to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, without you here, man, none of this would be possible. So, I mean, you're the freaking the other third of this whole thing going on right now.
Hey, man, we got to do it. We got something.
I wouldn't have done this with anybody else. So, which is awesome. But like the original comment on the YouTube was, who we cast as him, and when we first talked about it through text, it was kind of like you're the Allstate guy.
Yeah, I said Dennis Haysbert because I can see if they're doing it from the frame of he's going from the 60s to now, even though technically he'd be a little bit older. He'd be like around my parents' age, which actually Dennis Haysbert might be. But I would pick the Allstate guy, Dennis Haysbert, to be Blue Marvel. And then, he could knock somebody out and be like, that's Blue Marvel, Stan.
And I think I said Denzel.
Yeah, Denzel's not a bad choice either.
I think when it comes to, and this goes back to what we talked about last week with the casting, is like, I feel like with a character like this that's so, important based on everything that's going on now and how important it is to the book, you have to nail the casting.
100%. You need someone who can really fully display,
Yeah.
Just all the emotions that would go into this. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
off.
No,
I was saying, I know he had said Idris Elba.
Yeah.
I could see that. I get it.
And Idris Elba's such a phenomenal actor.
And he's big.
He's big. Like, he could easily do this. Like, I mean, and I loved him in that Fast and Furious spinoff.
Well, I think I said that. I was like, yo, this guy's like, he already is playing that, you know, and I don't think that Will Smith would be the answer.
No, and you know what? Speaking of Will Smith, I was super disappointed by Hancock just because that movie takes such a turn halfway through. But I would love if he returned to that role and just kept it true to form, where he's just that kind of like badass anti-hero that kind of gets drunk all the time. I would love to see a full movie of just that without quite the redemption arc. Just him being a little bit darker, a little bit, you know, more impacted by everything going on, where he's like, whatever, I'm going to do good just for the sake of it, but like, I'm not really looking for the reward, you know?
Yeah,
like,
and that's kind of what bothers me about superhero movies, and I guess not so much in shows, is like, you expect the superhero to win.
Yeah.
It is what it is. It's
well,
over.
I mean, and the shows are unique too, because I think as much as we go back and forth between DC and Marvel, I think DC definitely has the win right now for TV shows, especially when you look at the cartoons, like Harley Quinn, the most recent Justice League Dark movie, phenomenal.
I didn't
Absolutely
get to that yet
phenomenal.
because I refused to watch that until I watched the other 14.
Good luck.
And I've been waiting. I don't like, whenever there's like an arc going on like that, I don't like waiting.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like, oh, let me watch this and I gotta wait. It's like the Harry Potter movies. Never saw them. Don't hold
I
me
actually
to
just
it.
watched them recently. I did,
No
and
idea what
you
they're
know what?
about.
I was very impressed. You
Really?
know, I did not think I was gonna like Harry Potter at all. I was like, damn, this is actually pretty good.
Well, Sean, who's on the 4th and 1 podcast with you, said to me that he's like, yeah, man, they get like really kind of scary at the end. Like for
they
like
really
a kid,
do. Like it picks up, because for a while watching, I'm like, oh, okay, like Harry Potter's back. It's like, oh, there's a guy whose name you can't say. Oh, watch out for snakes. And then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, this got really deep. Like, there was a point where I sit in front of my TV, like, yo, I gotta order some food. Like, I gotta keep going with this, but like, I don't want to get up. Like,
no, I don't know if I can hop into that. It took me a little bit of a struggle to get into some of the Netflix Marvel stuff. I really liked Punisher. The second season, there's 2 seasons of that.
There's 2 seasons. They both, in my opinion, started off slow.
Yeah, well, the second season was pretty bad.
Yeah. Well, it's like Marvel with the Netflix shows did such a good job with Daredevil. Like, every season of Daredevil was phenomenal. Season 2 was great because you still had Kingpin as a major threat, and you had Daredevil. You had Punisher come in as this anti-hero, and you're like, oh, this guy's badass. He had that prison fight scene, and like the fight scenes of Daredevil were always next level. Iron Fist was absolute trash.
I think we shouldn't even talk about it.
Yeah, we're gonna. That's the last we're gonna bring it up. Hopefully, in the history of this,
it's off the show.
Luke Cage was just okay. It didn't. They tried to make him something that the character traditionally wasn't in the books. They tried to make him like the hero of Harlem, whereas he's more traditionally a hero for hire. He's helping people, but he's kind of looking out for himself. He might pocket a buck or two just to keep things moving forward. And I really wanted to see more of that. I personally think they should have made Luke Cage and Iron Fist a combined show. I don't think either of them quite have the
steam behind them.
Yeah, they don't quite have the depth that you can pull a full show out of, and that's why they struggled. And then, you know, spoilers again, the best character on Luke Cage, played by Mahershala Ali, Cottonmouth, died in
Midway
season
through.
1, and then I was just kind of like, what am I watching for? Because he was great. Like, he's a great actor. I'm very excited to see him continue his Blade. I think that's going to be a really cool move. That was great
That's
casting.
on Disney, though, or is that on...
I don't know what that's going to... I would assume that's going to be on Disney Plus or a movie, but
I mean,
either
the
way,
guy
I think
that
it's
played
gonna
Luke
be.
Cage would be a good pick, too, for Blue Marvel. He's big,
Actually, yeah, that is very
huge.
true. That is very true. He could do it. Mike Coulter. I'd want to see... Yeah. He's doing that show, Evil, I think it is right now.
That's going to get canceled.
Yeah, probably.
This isn't a TV podcast, but that's probably getting canceled.
That's probably, that's a safe bet. Most things that come on, I think it's on Fox, usually don't last.
Yeah, I mean, and, you know, and like you said before, with like the DC shows, I love the stuff on DC Universe. They do really well with, like you said, Harley Quinn is awesome. If no one has seen that, honestly, you need to watch that, that cartoon.
The thing that's great about Harley Quinn is that it just knows what it is and it sticks to it. It's enough of a satire while giving you the action and the humor that you're like, this is really enjoyable. Phenomenal voice work by
Haley Coco.
Haley Coco's great. I was gonna say Alan Tudyk as Joker too, where he's kind of an unsung hero. If you watched Firefly, you know, he was Wash, the pilot. He's phenomenal on that too. But like as a voice actor, I feel like he's very undersung Young, and he does a really great job as Joker.
And they do a good job with that show of like, they bring Superman into one episode and they just like, completely make fun of him. He's like, "Go eat sushi later." And, like Lois Lane's tied up. Like they make fun of Robin real well.
Oh yeah.
Which I don't think is that Damian.
Yeah, it's Damian. I'm pretty sure in that because that's why he's got the little kid voice the whole time.
And then spoiler alert, like Batman ends up getting put in like a coma and like disappears, and he's like walking around with like now he does everything electronically, and the way that they do Commissioner Gordon in that is just like
where he's all epic. Just like he's
like an alcoholic drunk, and he's like I hate life.
He's going on rant stuff. My favorite character in that whole thing though is Bane, because they stayed true to the ridiculous Bane voice from Dark Knight Rises, where he's like, "Oh, Harley, we must go forward." Well,
Clayface is pretty good too.
Clayface is actually, which I think Clayface actually might also be Alan Tudyk, if I'm not mistaken.
He's playing both of them?
I think he does a couple characters on that show.
I mean, I know that Clayface, they make him like a soap opera. Like, he must be a theater.
He's so funny, though.
King
it's just
Shark
so well
is
done.
like this, like, whoa, what's going on? Like,
King Shark, actually, shout out to King Shark, is also great in Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. The whole time, just King Shark is a shark. That's all he says, basically, the whole movie.
Well, it
just works. He sells it completely.
And if you notice what they do is they always, like, with Harley Quinn especially, it would be interesting to see if they do another, cartoon. They have to. They have to.
Season 2 came through so fast. They've got to do another one.
But even, like, another character, like maybe with, like, Green Lantern, or I don't think you can do a Batman cartoon right now because of... him being in Harley Quinn quickly, and the whole fiasco with. And
you saying that, I'm going to use this to kind of segue into one of the topics we had later on here with Batwoman being recast recently. That's something that just came about. That's very recent news. I actually love the casting for Batwoman originally. I thought, why
don't you read off what we got here from? This was from a Reddit form. Why don't you read this one?
Well. All right, pardon me. So, word of change came via a since-deleted casting notice posted to a Batwoman Reddit forum. Per Decider, which first reported the news, the new character who's going to replace Kate Kane is named Ryan Wilder. Whether that's a placeholder name is unclear at the moment. And it is described as a woman in her mid-20s who is about to become Batwoman. She's likable, messy, a little goofy, and untamed. She's also nothing like Kate Kane, the woman who wore the Batsuit before her. The notice reads, according to Decider, with no one in her life to keep her on track, Ryan spent years as a drug runner, dodging the GCPD and masking her pain with bad habits. A girl who would steal milk for an alley cat could also kill you with her bare hands. Ryan is the most dangerous type of fighter, highly skilled and wildly undisciplined. An out lesbian, athletic, raw, passionate, fallible, and very much not your stereotypical all-American hero. While that's awesome, I love the fact that we're seeing more LGBT heroes, more, characters in the Bat family. For the love of God, just make a fucking Batman show. It drives me nuts every single time. Because, the Batwoman show was, while it had good casting and I think a good idea, it was so poorly written because they were just trying to make everything like, oh, Batman's been gone for 5 years. No one's seen Bruce Wayne for 5 to 10 years. Like, really? And nobody put 2 and 2 together? That maybe the goddamn richest person in Gotham, who's phenomenally in shape for no apparent reason, just happens to be the Dark Knight. They disappear at the same time. Stuff like that drives me nuts. Make a Batman show. Just make a fucking Batman show.
I have a problem with the Batman show right now. And I'm going to probably get a lot of shit for this. The CW shows are like watching fucking One Tree Hill. Yeah. They're so soap opera-y. And I started watching Stargirl because I've heard a lot about it. It has a 90% rating right now on.
Does it really?
Yeah, on Metacritic.
Oh, that's impressive. I didn't know that.
I'm 3 episodes into it. I'm just my girlfriend's like, what are you watching? I'm like, I'm doing it for work. And it was just oh my God.
Well, that's why I fell off of Arrow and The Flash. Because Arrow was at least kind of cool in terms of the action, but that show was essentially a show about Batman without being about Batman. They tried to make him this super badass guy, which Green Arrow's okay. I don't see him on that level. But then you've got him taking down The Flash with arrows. I'm that shouldn't even be possible. That should not be possible, which actually Sorry, I'm going to segue into one other section. I know I've been jumping around our script here. My shenanigans engine of the week this week. This is going to be a weekly segment that I plan on bringing back more and more often.
And hitting that microphone.
Yeah, I know. Hitting that microphone. That's how you're going to know I'm bringing it in. Shenanigans engine. So now, a shenanigans engine is going to be, the way I describe it, it's something that's absolute bullshit that continues to enable more bullshit simply because it exists. So last time we were talking about how the symbiote is a shenanigans engine. That's just, you have the symbiote, you can basically do anything as long as fire or sonics aren't around you. This time I'm talking about the Speed Force. The Flash should not be able to do most of what the Flash does. But then they're like, oh, like he's running, 5 times faster than the speed of light. But I'm like, but everything around him's not destroyed. And DC's like, oh, Speed Force. Like, that's, sprinkle some Speed Force on it. Like, that's how he gets away without, like, destroying things if he's carrying someone.
And he's never tired.
He's never tired. He can dip into the speed. Well, he does get tired sometimes. Well, but at the same time.
He did, not to cut you off, did you see Justice League was it Doom? What the heck was the name of it? Where they take it from another book, and they briefly reference another Justice League book. I can't think of the name off the top of my head, where it's when Batman actually, he has the... He figures out a way. He's like, he has a backup plan if any of the Justice League members like.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm talking?
I think that is Doom.
It is
I think
Doom,
that
right?
is Justice
And then
League
at the
Doom.
end, they all vote him out, and he's like, pretty much like, oh, sleep.
He's like, screw you, I'm Batman. Yeah.
But in that, like,
I'm the Knight.
Yeah, I think it's Barry Allen is the Flash in that.
Yeah.
And at some point, he's like, I'm getting tired. It's like, dude, I've never heard you get tired.
Yeah, and also it was like, he had to like run through an iceberg, which like bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, no, you didn't. Like, he's just running, he's got some random thing in his wrist.
And that somehow stops, it takes it out.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Like, it's like stuff like that with the Flash sometimes. But at the same time, you can run fast enough that you can do laps around the entire globe. You can run through a fully constructed iceberg that would have taken down the Titanic. But a guy with an ice gun and a flamethrower are able to take you out on a weekly basis. Like, Speed Force is shenanigans. Well, it's a shenanigans engine. It enables shenanigans. It is a bullshit force that technically, I mean, obviously it would never exist, but it's just like, it pisses me off sometimes that Flash just pulls things out of his butt. He's like, oh, Speed Force, I can do this.
And that is the shenanigans.
That's the shenanigans engine of the week. It's the Speed
Force. But no, I mean, and they reference the Flash in Stargirl because they talk about the Justice Society, which is
because they formed that at the end of this last crossover, which was. That's something we need to talk about in a future episode. These crossover things that CW does, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're terrible, and sometimes you can just tell they ran out of things to do.
It's no different than the comics.
Yeah, well, the most recent one was such a blatant ripoff of Avengers Endgame.
Was it?
If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. It's just a blatant ripoff. And I mean, this is major spoiler, so if you haven't seen Avengers Endgame, which why the hell haven't you, or you haven't watched the most recent CW crossover of all the shows featuring Arrow, Flash, and Supergirl, I recommend you fast forward or pause right now and go ahead and watch it. But basically, it's the same where all the characters basically lose. The main character who brought everyone together, passes away. And they have to go into the past and see all their most famous exploits, basically, and go back and try and fix things, and then come back to the present to fight the main overarching threat again. It's just very blah. It feels very inauthentic and unoriginal when you watch it.
And they kind of rushed that, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
Like they brought Stargirl in it, who was a different casting at the time, and no one knew who the hell she was.
Yep.
And they throw Superman in there from like all different timelines.
Oh, there's like 18 different Supermen, which like I was really excited to see. Oh my god, I can't remember Tom Welling come back.
From Smallville?
Reprising his role from there, and like they play his theme song. You're like, oh my god, it's Tom Welling.
He's big.
Like, somebody save me.
Well, he was big in that show.
Yeah,
too.
And then like they bring him back. And they're like, holy shit, it's Tom Welling. And Lex Luthor's like, I'm here to kill you. He's like, well, I'm not Superman anymore. I gave up my powers. And I remember watching TV and saying, what? Like, what do you mean you gave up your power? Like, how is that an option? B, why? He's like, oh, so Lois could give birth. I'm like, what? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, why would you? Like, it's the stupidest thing in the world.
And then the new Superman they casted for it, he actually looks very eerily to me similar to Christopher Reeve's character Superman.
Oh, wait, you mean
the new guy?
Which new Superman though? Because there was like 3 in this thing. You're not talking about The guy who's on Teen Wolf. You know, the one with
one of them looks eerily similar to Christopher Reeves as Superman. He had like the tight,
Well, that's what. Thing. Yeah, he was supposed to be the reincarnation of that character, which was it's the same. It's the same guy who plays the Atom.
Teen Wolf.
Oh, you see, what I'm saying, same guy who plays the Atom. That for some reason I can't remember his name either. Guys, I apologize to everyone watching this podcast because this is the second week in a row I've forgotten a major name for some.
We don't have our stat guy yet.
Yeah, we don't have our stat guy yet, which
to help us out there with some of this stuff. You know, there's so much people playing different. Like you can't
we are casting for that. If anyone's interested, reach out. Say something in the comments. We need a stat guy.
Yeah.
But it's the same guy who played him in the I think it was 2008 not Superman Returns.
No, it wasn't him. I knew who you were talking about.
That's not who you're talking about.
Not Brandon something or other.
Yeah, Brandon Routh. Brandon Routh.
No,
that's
not
it. Yeah.
him. I'm not talking about him. There's another Superman that they casted.
Oh, interesting, because Brandon Routh was supposed to play the continuation of the Christopher Reeve Superman in that most recent crossover.
Which he looked good, too.
Yeah.
I mean, we could go to a whole, off topic and say, hey, who the hell the best Superman was, but... I think that...
I mean, Henry Cavill.
I know. I know. Yeah. He did well. But, back onto the topic of, as we're saying with the recasting of Batwoman, and again, I know this is a comic book podcast, but, for me, Ryan Wilder, I'm hoping that's a placeholder. But second of all,
terrible name.
they had addressed, they said something, this kind of goes in something we had talked about before, in Batman vs. Superman, they obviously show Robin's, outfit. I joked he's dead.
Yeah, the joke's on you.
Obviously, we all know it should be, Jason Todd. There's no way around it.
Yeah, there's no way it could be anybody else. Yeah.
End of story. But apparently, in the new Harley Quinn movie, they're going to address that. If they change it and say, oh yeah, Jason Todd's off in some other land, why? Why just stick to the comic book material? And a topic that we're definitely going to talk about, and it would be interesting to have someone else that follows comics as much as we do to talk about this, is when Frank Miller wrote The Dark Knight Returns, it was in 86.
Yeah.
He says, he references Robin being dead by the Joker. Death in the Family didn't come out until 88.
Yeah, it just happened, and fans voted on that. That was something that DC was like,
Miller,
do you want to see someone die?
Predict the future?
A little bit. Frank Miller has a history of writing. Yeah, he's got a history of writing dark books, and that's something that makes sense. Because Batman at that point is old. He's tired. He's jaded. So it would make sense that Robin's dead in that world.
But they never talk about it.
They never. No, fair. But what pissed me off with the movies was there was no need for Batman to have been as old as he was. I think it was just
in Dark Knight Returns, the movies.
Yeah, in the
Part 1 and Part 2 they put out?
No, sorry, not the animated one.
Oh, okay.
When they did Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, which was a god-awful name for a film. Just do Batman vs. Superman. Why are you putting Dawn of Justice? Everyone knows it's Justice League related. Calm the fuck down. Stop hand-fisting it. But there was no reason. Batman at that point in the movies, Ben Affleck's character, had been Batman for 20 years, which I think was too much. Because you have no feel for the character. You don't really appreciate the fact that he has this experience as Batman. They just kind of throw stuff at you and you're like, oh, yeah, he's tired, but he's back in shape because Superman's a threat. And you're watching the movie Batman has zero shot in this fight. The whole time you're watching. Superman shows up once and tears apart his car for no reason. It's you're done. He's do you bleed? Which is a really weird response to that. So the whole thing is just kind of, it's, like I said, ham-fisted. There should have been nuance. They could have built up to it. I would have liked to have seen some actual direction. And it's very strange because DC, for the most part, outside of the films, very much has their shit together. All their animated stuff makes sense. All those follow kind of a line. They all correspond with each other. And their films just Aquaman. Aquaman's here. He was in Justice League, but now he's doing his own thing. And Wonder Woman is in the 80s because...
Yeah, I agree. I would say that, and this is my, I guess, unbiased opinion. I think that's the right word here. I personally think that DC right now is putting out better content in reading form. as
comics, Marvel. We touched on this briefly last time. I think Marvel's, and not that it's necessarily a bad thing. I think they're just trying too hard to go too PC, where they're changing a lot of the history of some of their more well-known characters, as opposed to creating new ones that could be, beneficial.
Which we talked about last week.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't think we ever answered. Who will we ever see?
A new breakout character.
A new breakout character.
I think someone needs to be a little bit more brave. Like, you've got great ideas for characters that have come up, like Ironheart is a great idea for a character, but the fact that she's directly carrying on the Iron Man legacy just kind of weighs against her. I would just love to see someone new come up. Like, give her that same personality background where she's like a genius 16-year-old. She comes from a different ethnic background than traditional superheroes, but just give her something entirely her own to go off of, as opposed to building off of Iron Man's legacy.
I mean, they do seem to be pushing Moon Knight a little bit right now. I've heard a little.
Moon Knight's been popular kind of low key for a while.
Anyone that says that that's Marvel's Batman is out of their fucking mind.
No,
there's no way.
There's similarities, sure. Batman is Batman, and he's another shenanigans engine in and of himself.
You ever bring that into this podcast? I'll mute your microphone.
I honestly might. There is a one time. I forget which issue it is. There's one time Batman's talking to someone, and like they're sharing tea, and the guy's like, "Oh, by the way, Batman, I poisoned your tea," and Batman's like, "That's what you think. You blinked. I switched the cups," and I was like, "Bullshit! That's literally physically impossible." Like, you know how like I'm watching, you blink twice. There's no way that as a regular human, I'm reaching across, I hit the microphone. There's no way I can even reach over, like, switch our mics and be like, haha, okay. Now you've got the poison.
I'll give you, because I was reading today, again, I told everybody last week, I've been reading the Dark Knight Legends series, and, coming from Batman Year One, it's the good carry-on. And again, I was reading Faces today, or Faces, and they bring in Two-Face, which, again, if you don't know who Two-Face is and you read this book, you're like, who the fuck's Two-Face? We talked about that last week, too. Yeah. Why don't you ever give some sort of
Which, like, Marvel at least gives you the little description in the beginning of their books. Like, here's the juxtaposition. Here's what's going on for all these characters and why they're together. It's like
not here.
Paragraphs.
It's like, here's Two-Face. You know what the hell he's talking. I get it. Two-Face came out in, I think, the 60s. And this book
he's got two faces. One half's evil, one half's regular.
This book was probably in the 90s. But, so Batman's, he gets caught. He gets caught in every book. He gets caught. He gets beat up in every book.
He gets caught and beat up in every book.
Batman
gets caught and beat up in every.
But here's what I'm saying.
He didn't have a plan.
He's caught, and all of a sudden he's chained up, and Two-Face like, all right, you're gonna die here. See you in hell, pretty much. But fuck you. Well, my glove has acid that'll just come out, and bro, Batman's a favorite hero. I love him. He's the man. But you have an answer to everything.
Just happen to have it. Like, thank God I wore this glove this time.
Which is a good tie-in to what I said last week about George Clooney being my favorite, and I thought the best well-played Bruce Wayne. I fucking take back every word I fucking said about last episode. I rewatched Batman and Robin, and God fucking damn, is that a fucking awful
bad movie. That's a bad movie. Dude, he's got the bat cards. Which,
that's on here. That's on the notes.
Because I'm like, how is that something that exists? Yep. Who co-signed for that? The guy doesn't have a face. Like, what do you mean? Like, who is
that movie? It took me 2.5 days to watch it because I was like, oh my God. Now, just so you know, Batman and Robin, released in 1997, was directed by Joel Schumacher and written by Akiva Goldsman, which this what blows my mind is he wrote I Am Legend, Cinderella Man, I Am Robot, and won Academy Award for A Peaceful Mind. How did you write this? And I think he wrote Batman Forever too, which wasn't as bad as this, but it was
going down.
Because you know what they did? Here's what they did. Tim Burton somehow didn't want to do it. Because I think maybe
they changed what he was trying to do. Like, he was trying to do something, and the studio stepped in.
You could tell they tried to keep these films in that universe. And the other thing that blew my mind is when you do the starting page, the opening credits, you don't see George Clooney's name first. It ain't a fucking Batman film. It's Arnold fucking Schwarzenegger.
Because he came to kick some ice.
I mean, and the puns in this movie.
Oh, the puns are so
bad. I think at one point he says to Poison Ivy, like, I'm going to turn you into mulch.
Yeah.
Really?
Or I think it's Vivica Fox says something about giving him the cold shoulder. Yeah. Like, it's all just, it's again, so just ham-fisted, just forced right in your face the whole time.
And this goes into what you said. I said before about how Batman just has random things. So, Poison Ivy's doing the whole like, oh, love me, yada yada yada. Him and Robin are fighting, and Robin goes and sees her, and Robin's like, oh, kiss me, and they kiss, and he's like,
she's a redhead. And, like, let's be honest.
So they kiss, and she's like, oh, you're gonna die, boy bat, and he's like, I have plastic on my lips.
Yeah,
and he pulls the plastic off.
Like, why would you like?
And like this movie, like, okay, they came up with, and I get. So I have this weird thing about Dick Grayson and Bruce Wayne's relationship, because to me, in this book, again, Dick's parents are dead. If you don't know that, stop listening to this. But then they bring in.
It's too late now.
True, but then they bring in Batgirl, and it's not even Barbara Gordon. And
there was no reason to do that.
It's Barbara Wilson, who's Alfred's
British niece without a British accent.
Who her parents are dead as well.
Yeah.
And she just gets the code to be the Batcave from Alfred.
And like, when did they build her suit? Yeah. Like, who had time for that? Like, it was
she
like, all right, we need this B-cup breastplate to protect Alicia Silverstone.
It's the weirdest thing. It's like she shows up and she's just like, she knows how to fight. She's a fucking.
So and like they never explain any of it, and like it
was so weird.
Cheesy lines, the bat nipples, all that stuff.
Which the bat nipples are on in Batman Forever. It's on his first suit in Batman and Robin, but his last suit, which looks like something from a action figure that I have from the 90s. Oh yeah,
it was 100%.
Doesn't have the nipples, but her suit has the nipples, and Robin's suit has the nipples.
Yeah, it's blatant. Like, I don't know why they were trying to sell sex to kids, but they clearly were.
There was I read an article on Newsarama or maybe CBR, and they gave like some detailed logic why they put nipples on it, and it was like
for breastfeeding. What
the
hell was happening?
It was so bad. And the best thing about this too is, and I didn't know this. I actually I was on Wikipedia and I was just like, God, that was so bad. Like, what was this all about? Coolio was in it, and he was casted to play Jonathan Cain as Scarecrow in the canceled Batman film, Batman Unchained.
Sometimes you don't even know when you dodge bullets.
Remember how they do when she gets the bike and she goes like the bike race. Coolio is the guy that's like
Jonathan Crane, right?
Yeah, he's like, oh, you're racing.
Could you imagine? Like, they would have done something so cheesy, like, tell me, Batman, why are we so blind to see that the ones we hurt are you and me? And then just cuts into Gangsta's Paradise. Like, there's complete shenanigans. Like, why would you put Coolio in that part?
I was blown away when I saw that.
I had no idea that was a thing. Yeah. I knew he was in, what else is he in? He's in Daredevil.
In
Coolio's in Daredevil, the Ben Affleck one, yeah.
Shouldn't have been cast as that.
Oh, that movie shouldn't have happened. That movie was just a travesty in and of itself.
I mean, but going back to, like I said, like, why change the comic book character? Why
I have no idea why they felt the need to do that. Because Gordon wasn't even that major of a character at that point. It wouldn't have hurt to have introduced him having a daughter, because it was supposed to be a continuation of the Keaton movies. It made no sense why they thought that was going to be an okay thing, especially when Alfred's been the same guy the whole time. Like, he's never mentioned having a niece.
And they don't ever... His niece isn't in anything. Like, I was like, did she ever show up in a book? I read... Dude, I don't think she shows up in anything.
Doesn't he have, like, a random disease in that movie, too?
Yeah, it's
like,
called...
he's got COVID-19.
No, it's called... What the heck's it called? I thought I wrote it down here. It's something... it's like someone's name.
Yeah, he's got some kind of...
And someone else has it. Freeze's wife has the same disease.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And then he gets the cure, and
he gives it to Batman. And, I mean, at one point, Bane's in this, too, which we forgot about.
We didn't forget. We just didn't want to bring it up because that was bad.
He shows up, and I had to write this down in my notes here. If anyone has played the new Resident Evil 2 game, Mr. X, I know you know what I'm talking about. Bane and Uma Thurman's Poison Ivy get off the fucking plane. He looks like Mr. X.
He does.
If I can put his picture side by side on this little YouTube, I will totally show it. Man. He looks like Mr. fucking X.
It's so bad, too, because, like, they don't even try to make him look realistic. Like, it's clearly just a guy in a muscle suit.
Yeah, I thought that guy was that big. Wait, you're talking about when he's like normal size? When he amps
I'm talking when he amps himself up, like it looks super, like he's punching through like a wall that's made out of cardboard. Like a lot of it was complete shenanigans.
Yeah, it was not. Again, I don't know what I was thinking.
I don't know why how I thought that was gonna be okay.
Or how I thought that. No, how I thought that was a good Bruce Wayne.
As Bruce Wayne, it makes sense. George Clooney kind of has that playboy mystique and attitude. That's why I thought he'd be good as Iron Man. Like, you look at him in, like, the Ocean's movies, you're like, okay, this could kind of work. Like, I could see him being a billionaire playboy. But it's just once you really get into the nitty-gritty of the film, and I think Clooney's on record as saying the script was so ridiculous that he played a ridiculous Batman. He's like, whatever, I'm just going to play it up. Like, he's like, I got the money, I'm in this, I might as well just have fun with it.
I mean, they have ice skates in their shoes.
Yeah.
And then they air surf. On
remember that seems so like how that's not even possible. Like they would have fallen off. And then one other thing that we'd be remiss to not mention is the fact that Poison Ivy and Mr. Freeze, their plans are completely different.
Like, they're never side by side.
Yeah, because but it's like they're like, oh, we're working together, but Mr. Freeze is like, oh, I'm going to freeze everything, and then Poison Ivy's like, oh, I'm gonna grow plants everywhere. I'm like, those are counterproductive goals. Like, unless you're going to split the planet in half.
Yeah,
like
that was weird.
Yeah, it made zero sense.
And that was kind of like in the Batman Forever movie. Again, Batman Forever is better than this, but you had the Riddler and Two-Face, who kind of Two-Face was like, Tommy Lee Jones was like supposed to be like the main villain, and then midway through it was just kind of like. Wait, no, Jim Carrey's character is...
Well, and like, what pissed me off about... Sorry to cut you off, but what pissed me off about Two-Face in that movie is he kept flipping his coin until he got the answer he wanted. I'm like, that's not Two-Face, though.
No, what pissed me off about Two-Face not to cut you off, is he was the Joker. He was acting like... That's
honestly,
not
yeah,
how...
That's 100%. He was a lot more like Joker than he was. That's a very good observation.
Like, he was like... giddy and wow, dude, like
all
he's
like dancing around. Yeah. It's like not. It was a very weird casting for Tommy Lee Jones too. I'm like, real like Tommy Lee Jones. Who you guys thought?
And he was older.
This?
He wasn't even like a younger.
Yeah, he was like 60 then. Like I don't know. Tommy Lee Jones is one of those people. He's like Morgan Freeman that he's just always been old. Mm-hmm. Like I have no idea what his actual age is. He's just the same in every single movie.
Yeah, but he played it like the Joker.
Yeah,
and in Toothpaste in the comics, like Two-Face and Face, which again, if anyone's reading it, it's wants to read it, it's issue 29. 30 and 31 in the Dark Knight Legends, Two-Face is like he pretty much harps on the fact that he's two faces. You got the acid thrown on him from the court case. I don't remember who the guy. I don't remember who it was.
So fucking pissed.
But so he pretty much brings in a group of carnival people, like all like a woman that has like a huge beard, and another two-faced guy shows up at the end of it. They have like dwarfs and stuff like that, and he's pretty much telling like these carnival people like, hey, we're gonna take over, we deserve our yada yada yada, our rights, and people need to not judge us, which kind of goes back to the topic of the day with everything else going on in the world. But then like they just kind of flip a switch in Face. He kind of says something like I don't remember how exactly he words it, but he pretty much says like, oh, we're gonna take over, and they're all kind of like, well, I have a family and I have a kid and I don't really want to do that. Like, I'm happy. It's like, so why have you been following this dude
why
around
are we doing this the whole time?
The moral of the story is that in that book, he's very cold. He's very, like, dry. Like, he's just like, hey, I'm here. I'm going to fucking kill you. I don't give a shit. In Batman Forever, he was like...
Yeah, he's like...
on another planet. Like, he was either on coke or doing Molly. Like, I don't know what
he's got the half regular, half, like, zebra striped suit. And it's like, where'd you get that fabric?
Yeah, it was weird, man. And even the Riddler, like, I thought Jim Carrey... as Enigma, I thought, okay, it wasn't. I don't think it's as bad as maybe people think it is, but the suit
it made sense for Jim Carrey to be over the top for the kind of movies he was doing at the time. Like, I believe he was coming off The Mask around then. People kind of expected him to be that over-the-top, super comedic presence. I think he honestly would have been a great Joker if given the chance, especially looking at the depth of roles that Jim Carrey can pull off now. When you look at him doing a serious film, he really might have been able to do justice to that. I still think that's something that could be explored in the future.
Him as the Joker?
I think that's something that could...
Dude, I think that with the last Joker movie...
they need to go back to basics.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who hasn't seen that movie, they definitely take anything you know about Joker and just throw it out the door.
Believe it or not, this might be a cardinal sin here. I haven't seen it. It's just something I've been a little bit burnt out on some superhero movies recently, and that's one that I've been kind of waiting for. But like for me, I've always really enjoyed the dynamic between Joker and Batman, so I haven't been as pushed to see it, just because Batman's not in it. But it's on my list. I'll probably knock it out next week so we can discuss it further.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it for today's show, though, man. I think I said, if you have not read Blue Marvel, you need to take the time to read that damn book.
Yeah, especially now it's very relevant. I believe it's available on Barnes & Noble. You can download the Nook app. I think it's actually on sale right now. It's like 11 or 12
Comixology probably has it.
Yeah, Comixology.
There's some bootleg
there's probably
website.
on Marvel Unlimited too. There's a few places you can watch it. I'm sorry, read it. But it is definitely culturally relevant for right now, and it's something that hopefully can push us forward to the next stage. Like people reading it, maybe learning a little something from it. Would be nice.
No, again, definitely, like you said, take the time, read it, get out of your way. It's 5 issues. It's not 6, which it was supposed to be. It's only 5 issues.
Yeah, and it's an easy read,
it's
too.
Super easy. Yeah. It's not wordy, like we said. The artwork in it is
phenomenal. It's
fucking
very well
awesome,
done.
and I really think everybody out there will enjoy it. So thank you everyone once again for listening. You can find us at Yo What Up Comics on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or Why Am I a Nerd, as we said, on YouTube. You have to search it. We don't have the URL yet, so please subscribe to us.
Yep.
You can follow us. You can follow us on Instagram, Why Am I Nerd Official, Facebook.com/Why Am I Nerd.
And also, if you get the chance, please, comment anything you'd like us to talk more about, any questions you might have, things you want us to cover. Put those in the comments on YouTube. We'll be sure to bring them up. We're trying to, answer every question we get right now, which is ironically enough how Blue Marvel came up. So please definitely be active in the comment section there, and obviously like and subscribe.
Yeah, and again, it's our 2nd issue. I think we're doing a pretty damn good job with it.
Yeah, I would pat us on the back.
Hiccups every now and then, but it is what it is. Once again, I'm Cameron James. This is Matt Ferreira. We're out.